Hello and welcome back to Bookish and welcome back to Saturday Hodgepodge, my weekly wrap-up of my bookish stuff. So reading first because this will be the shortest part. I've read nothing new. I know we all sometimes kind of, and particularly recently, seem to hit slumps in reading, and I think I'm definitely there. So neither of the books I'm going to hold up have I finished, and both of them you've seen recently in my wrap-up and my TBR because I mentioned both. Still doing the buddy read of All Aunt Hager's Children by Ever P. Jones with Patrice Jones. I know I'm enjoying these stories more than she is, but we're having a good time reading them together. So continue on with that, and that's been successful. And then I am becoming more and more distressed with my future with Utopia Avenue by David Mitchell. At this point, I am only about 50 pages further than I was the last time I talked. Still not to page 180, and it's about a 600-page book. So, you know, if I were Shawn and Sonya advised me to do what Shawn would do, which, you know, is always probably a recipe for fun. If I were Shawn, I would bail already, but this book is at the point where it's past my bailout, my normal bailout level. On top of that, I'm cheap, and I paid a lot of money for it. So I want to read it and get to the end. And to be honest with you, and I've said this before, it's not that I dislike the book. I actually kind of find some parts of the book kind of charming and interesting and funny. And I like the topic and I like the time period. I'm a little bit tired of some of the characters always saying "your" instead of "you" or "your." But you know, that's a dialect, I suppose, that the author Mitchell knows a lot more about than I do. So I'm trying to go with it. Every once in a while it kind of starts to bother me, but I really haven't been able to get too much into the book at all. So since I haven't been reading, I've been watching a lot of BookTube videos, and recently I watched a video by Lukas over at Totally Pretentious, which was titled Why Be Well Read. And then Ami 1649 or Ami, I can't remember that's his channel name, made a response to that, which I watched and enjoyed as well. I'll leave links to Lukas's videos down below and Ami's video down below as well. And so I've been thinking about that issue of being well read. And it was in college where I started to feel like, you know, I wasn't a serious enough reader. And one of my best friends in college kind of introduced me to introduced me to the idea of reading kind of classic 20th century American authors. And that's where I started. And I'm sure if you looked at my playlist, if you looked at my shelves, you looked at books I've talked about and listed, the authors, you'd find that the strength of my reading and a significant portion of my reading is in 20th century American writers. And from there I kind of branched out to British writers or writers from Great Britain itself, and then European writers, as you know, with my love kind of some 19th century French novelists. It kind of branched out from there, and you know, I would be lying if I said that part of my motivation for getting into reading wasn't to feel like that I was accomplishing something, that I was becoming, as Lukas's question is, that I was becoming well read, and that being well read would have some kind of outward meaning, that I would be able to know what books people are talking about and get people's illusions. And all those things are true, but that eventually becomes kind of hollow. And you realize that if you're not reading kind of for yourself, then nothing else really matters. On top of that, this whole concept of being well read is, I think, largely a function of Western civilization's need to promote and prop up its own importance, because what we normally mean in the West by well-read is that we've read the classics of Western civilization. You know, we can debate, and I know there's a good debate about whether or not the Greeks belong as a part of or part of Western civilization or not. That's fine. I don't want to get into that, but you know, certainly that's what we mean. And so one of the things I thought, you know, when I was trying to answer the question is, am I well-read? You know, obviously what I came up with is, if we're talking about the entire world, no. If we're talking about 20th century American authors, I'm pretty well read. But beyond that, I'm pretty limited. And I think, you know, for most normal human readers, not you, Steve, but I think for most normal human readers, that concept of well read is based on the niche in which we choose to read, the area and the books and the things that we're interested in. And I don't know that many of us are well read in the sense of having read literature, or lots of literature and writing from around the world, and translated classics, etc., that most of us have kind of focused on some areas. So I started to be kind of curious as to how focused I was on any specific or particular area of reading. And so I counted the fiction books on my shelf back there that I have read. I counted poetry, but I didn't count like classic works of philosophy or history or anything like that. And I did count my short story books, which are over here, but I forgot to count my fantasy books. I didn't count any of my nonfiction, any of the history, any of the books about science or art. I didn't count any of those books. I just counted works of fiction that I'd read on these shelves. And certainly this is not, aren't all the works of fiction I've read, just the ones I have on the shelf here. And so there are 402 works of fiction back there and on one other shelf in the living room, which I think I may have shown before. There are 402 works of fiction on the shelves. And when I counted, and just doing these quick, not obsessing about accuracy, but when I counted, 202 of them were written by American authors. I didn't break down gender or race, ethnicity, just American authors. 202 of them. That means that more than 50% of my reading has been in American authors. But then the other categories, I counted books that came from or written by authors or British authors, great authors from Great Britain. That's what I'm trying to say. And of all the books I have on my shelf, I think something like 28% that I'd read came from British authors. I didn't include Irish authors in with the British because I do think there's a distinct difference there. So then I also counted European authors, and I think with European authors I came up with like 19% of the books that I've read are from European authors who are not British, and that brings me up to, really practically 95% of the works of fiction that I've read are works of fiction by authors from Western civilization, from the United States, from Great Britain, or from Europe, and that my reading from Asia and from Africa and particularly Australia, is woefully underrepresented, and therefore, I could never consider myself to be well read. So maybe, what we should mean by well read is that we've read books that have made a difference to us. And I think I said this in the comments Lukas's video, I think there are basically three reasons to read: entertainment, knowledge, and then experience. That we can read just strictly for entertainment. Okay, I think almost anything you read is going to bring with it some elements of knowledge and experience. But entertainment is one reason to read, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with reading for pure entertainment. The second is to learn, and even works of fiction teach us things all the time. One of my particular areas of interest as kind of an amateurish historian was the line between fiction and history, and how often times in the past novels can convey lots of information about history, and we should be aware of how accurate that is. So there's also then knowledge, and then the third one, and closely related to me, is experience, and that experience is the human experience. And this is not original at all, but the reason I think that one of the most ennobling reasons to read is to gain insight into humanity, to experience things through fictional worlds, through authors and characters that you're never going to experience, and to kind of connect to those things which make us human. And to me, if we do that, whether we read 40 books or 400 books or 400,000 books, if you have those experiences, then I think that is well read, and I think that's well worthwhile, gaining those insights into the human condition and into things that connect us. I think that's a good reason to be well read. Sorry for that long rambling thing. So this month is September, and it's Shaketube, and I don't know if you noticed in my TBR video that I put out on Thursday, but I didn't list any Shakespeare plays, and I'm not going to read any Shakespeare plays this year unless, the mood just strikes me. What I am going to do is I'm going to watch a film adaptation or a television staging of a Shakespeare play every week, one that goes along with the host of Shaketube's choices. This week I watched Richard II, and I have to tell you honestly, this is never going to be one of my favorite Shakespeare plays. This one almost feels like melodrama to me in some places. And the whole idea of the replacing of the king, the replacing of Richard II with Henry IV is, it necessitates a lot of long speeches and soul-searching. And anyway, it's not that I didn't enjoy it. There are some great parts in there. By the way, the version I watched was staged by the BBC, I want to say sometime in the 70s. Derek Jacobi is Richard II, and John Gielgud is, oh, I forgot the character he plays, but he dies fairly early on. And I enjoyed the acting, and the staging I thought was pretty interesting, but the play itself, not high on my list. I'm looking forward to seeing Steve's video about this, so he can enlighten me on it. But that's kind of how I'm going to do Shaketube, and this week I watched Richard II. So the only other thing I want to do here is I want to steal an idea that I saw from Jack, the Rambling Raconteur, who posted some links to some YouTube videos with music to kind of go along with some of the reading you've been doing. And Jason from Old Blues Chapter and Verse once again claimed, almost in an un-American way, that he hates jazz. So I'm going to put a link to a jazz song by Miles Davis, It Never Crossed My Mind, which is one of the most beautiful things I think I've ever heard. And so I'll leave a link to that down below, and you can enjoy that as well. As always, look forward to your comments in the comment section, and thank you for watching.